Welcome back, collectors. At long last, 1989 Hot Wheels year-by-year video is in progress. So many cool Hot Wheels and so many new lineups for 1989. This is actually going to be split into a 3-part series, just so I can keep the video length to a watchable amount of time and not carry on for over an hour, which is what I think it would take me to go through all of the Hot Wheels that were released in 1989. I have nearly a 99% complete collection of all these cars, literally hundreds of them. What you're looking at in part 1 of this 3-part 1989 series will be a brief history of the Hot Wheels color change cars, which were originally released as the Color Magic cars, and then the Color Racers cars, and ultimately in 1993 changing to Color FX. So we've got quite a few cars. This is not a complete collection. I don't really collect the change color cars per se. However, I have ended up with quite a few over the years. Probably a sample of every casting anyways that I know of. And certainly many variations and lots to talk about with these cars, including some of the advantages and flaws of the cars and changes that were made over the years, including how the cars were originally all metal with a heat sensitive paint pigment and how it changed in 1993 to plastic bodies with heat sensitive pigment. So we'll get into that more in detail as we go through all the vehicles. Also in 1989, the introduction to the Power Command Racers. These were sold individually and I believe in some 2 or 3 car sets. I may be wrong on that. All of my cars are loose, but I do have a complete collection of all of the Power Command Racers that were released, and quite an interesting array. Difficult cars to find these days in good condition, especially with their rear Power Command launch wing, which was advertised as able to set the cars off with just the breath on your, the blow of your breath, they say. Just blow on the wing and off they go once they're wound up. A few notable race sets that were released in 1989, most notably for me was the double barrel stunt set, stunt loop thrill set with 2 exclusive cars, both of which are quite rare these days to find in good shape. And this is an opened but unplayed with, unbuilt set, as is this Light Speeders Challenge race set. This one is still brand new in the box. However, unfortunately the cars were missing when I bought it, and there are these 2 interesting little cars here we'll talk about later on as well, but not something you're probably going to find all that easily, although the playset can be found on eBay. I'm not sure it was a huge hit. It does have a lot of interesting track pieces, but it was only released in 1989, never to be seen again, and nothing similar to that principle as far as how that track set works, because it's not your standard Hot Wheels free-rolling, friction, or motorized set. It relied on battery-powered cars, self-propelled, that were activated by these basically flashlights with red light bulbs in them. So we'll take a look at that as well and flip those boxes around, check them all out. But first, let's start off with the Color Racers or Auto Magic. Those names were kind of, I think, intertwined, but mostly used between 1989 through 1991, phased out in 1992, of course, for Color FX. So these cars, I'm not even sure if they actually change color. It's been so long since I've dunked them in the water. Most likely, most of them are locked in their current color state, which is something that has happened to basically most of the cars now that they're going on 30-something years old. They just kind of stay with whatever paint color they ended up with at whatever temperature they were. And that's where they're at now. I don't have any duplicates out here, although it may look like it. These are just the same castings, but with different tampo work on them. The tampos did not change colors. It was just the underlying paint. So some interesting variations. These cars, I'm going to just say, were released between 1989 and 1992. I do not have a complete breakdown of exactly when each of these specific models were released through that 3-year span. And looking up that information online is lengthy, tedious, and not always guaranteed to be accurate. So I'm going to just leave it at that. Hopefully that suffices for you guys. I won't be touching on the Color Magic or any more color changing cars after this video. As I said, they're not really part of my collection that I actively display. The Power Command cars certainly are, and we'll look at a quick little demonstration of how those work, as well as a close-up look of each of these models, what their names are, and any other information. Part 2, we're going to look at the mainline cars that were released in 1989, which I still have on my wall. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think about 6 Plano cases full of 1989 cars, so I'm not really sure where I'm pointing here. Somewhere in that general direction, but we're going to get all those cars off the wall out onto the table here for the part 2 of this video. And part 3 will be any cars that don't make it into that first blob, because there's literally hundreds of cars there. So special cars, including the California Customs, which were released, and a whole variety of other cool things. So let's just get into one part at a time. 1989, all of the Hot Wheels that I have in my collection, which represents the majority, like I say, about 99% of the cars released that year, for the year by year. And also, guys, this is not the last video in the series. I started this series back in 1974, or as far as, not me personally, but the 1974 cars year by year forward through. Now we're at 1989. There's a video for each of those if you want to look back, if you've missed any of them, or you're interested in other years of Hot Wheels that were released, and other playsets and anything like that. Price guides. I'm not doing much of a price guide anymore. Prices are variable. I haven't been on eBay all that much in the last couple months, so I'm not going to throw prices out there. I will talk about rarity and high prices I've paid for certain models. Mainly that's the color Auto Magic color racers. In the front row here we've got the Ford Fairmont, BMW M1, Mustang SVO was an expensive one, 57 Chevy, 80s Firebird, 65 Mustang, and of course the Beetles are always commanding a lot of money on the secondary market. The Baja Beetle, the VW Beetle, so, and possibly more. I'm sure that the Kenworth in the back you found in mint condition, that's part of a set. It should have come with a car hauler and some micro color racer cars, so like micro machine sized cars. But I don't have those examples, so this is the most incomplete part of my 1989 collection, and that's why we're going to get it out of the way first. As a teaser for the main meat and potatoes of this, so to speak, the 1989 mainline cars and every promotional car, Getty gas station, everything like that that you're going to see in the following 2 videos. So without further ado, let's take a closer look at some of these awesome cars. I named off the first ones there. We've got the Custom Corvette, Silver Bullet, and a Porsche 959. This green one here is actually an exclusive to the Auto Magic color change playset. It was an exclusive car. We've got the Science Friction, a 63 Corvette, Porsche 911 Turbo, 3 examples there, all different color tampos. The 55 Chevy, 3 there, 4 there actually. The 57 T-Bird, quite a common car to find. 75 Corvette Stingray, whole bunch to look at there. Some of the metallic paint, some solid enamel color change paint. Interesting to know which of those would work best nowadays or even back in the day. Ferrari Testarossa, Race Bait 308, another Ferrari. Ford Thunderburner, Chevy S10, I think that one's called the Beach Bomb. We've got the F3 Interceptor car, Lamborghini Countach, Solaire CX4, the Kenworth. Got the old US mail van, I just call that one the delivery van. Jeep CJ7, Sheriff Patrol, and Ranger Rescue, rounding out my collection of the color change cars. So like I said, I haven't tried to change the colors of any of these cars. I haven't tried putting them under cold water or warm water, as it does make the axles rusty. So for a collection like this, it's basically a static collection. I'm not too interested in seeing what will happen when I get them hot or cold at this point. And in 1993, I had touched on that there was a change as they went to the Auto FX cars, or Color FX. These ones were, in some cases, entirely plastic. This is a 1993 release of the Hummer H1. and it's got a plastic body, color change, and a plastic base. They all had a plastic body. This one, this Jeep Trail, or it's not even a Jeep, it's just, they call this the Trailblazer. This was a new casting in 1993. It also made it into the Color FX lineup. It featured a pretty ugly looking body in this particular locked color. And, oh, it still does change, look at that. So the plastic ones were a lot more sensitive to temperature changes, and continue to work to this day in some cases, whereas I have not noticed that so much with my 1989 through 92 collection. So like I said, I've touched on the cars that were the most expensive in my experience. We'll just take a nice closer look at some of these beautiful cars. None of them are in exactly mint condition, but I remember paying quite a bit, like around $60 for this Mustang SVO. Its only flaw is a chip right on the hood right there, unfortunately. The 57 Chevy was also rather expensive, but it is absolutely dead mint. And also important when looking at the prices of these cars online is to consider, you know, what color it's locked in. Even though it would change from, say, pink to purple, it's sometimes more desirable to get the color locked in at a more desirable color, not you know, not a color that's kind of halfway between and not terrific. The Ford Fairmont here, I think it's one of those cases where it's kind of locked halfway between, but super cool car in really nice shape, a harder one to find. I believe that was part of the 3-pack exclusives. A lot of these color change cars came in multi-packs, 3-packs especially, so you'd get one exclusive color car and a couple more regulars that were sold singly. And they were widely available all over. They were quite popular with kids. I myself grew up with many of these cars and still have a few of my originals to this day. They are not in terrific condition, of course. Basically all these cars are metal on metal, metal bodies on metal bases, with only a few exceptions, such as the van here has a plastic base, and Rescue Ranger has a plastic base, as it always did. I think the Corvette might have a plastic base. No, it's metal. So a lot of metal based cars. That one's a plastic base, the 80s Firebird. And actually, interestingly, the most expensive cars, well, that one's a metal one. That one's a plastic one. So pretty much following in line with the cars as they were in the mainline release, the regular cars, not the color changes. If they had a metal base there, they likely had a metal base in the color Auto Magic changing cars. The plastic base ones seem to be a little bit less chosen for these color changing cars, possibly for durability, just because these obviously are going to be geared towards a younger crowd for sure. Definitely younger kids that really enjoying the color changing aspect of the cars, taking them outside, throwing them into the garden hose and that sort of thing. So we're going to go on into the Power Command cars. I've got 16 cars here. I've got one of each, or two of each car as they were released. Completely different paint job tampos on them. Even the cars that look like they would have kind of the same, just a different colored body, such as this Chevy Camaro, actually does not have the same tampo graphics at all. It's just those wacky designs that we started to see more and more of into the 1990s. And of course some solid tampo work on some of these cars as well. These all featured metal bases, plastic bodies, plastic wing, plastic centered wheels with rubber tires, and quite hard to find these cars now with intact rubber tires and certainly unplayed with. They were wind back cars, and then as you can see that wing kind of popped up when you touched the wing or even blew on it. They would go off by themselves. There was also a lock feature so that it would do what you saw just there. It would park and then wait until you actually would release the wing. If you activated that little bottom slider on the bottom, it just turned into a standard wind-up car where you pull it back and off it went immediately. So I really like them in the lock position. I think that's a really nice feature, that the car will actually just wait until it's ready to go. So I'm curious to try out some of these cars on this track here, actually, in a future video, the Light Speeders track set. I have looked for these two light-sensitive cars, which don't really resemble normal Hot Wheels and may even be a slightly different size. Not pretty keen on getting those cars. I can't find them. I don't think this set's going to be overly functional, especially being nearly 30 years old now. But I think it's going to be great with these cars on it. We'll just see how that goes anyways. I've also got, of course, the old Scorcher cars from the 1970s, but those ones have a little bit less oomph in their engines than these more recent Power Command cars do. So we've got the 75 Corvette in two different colors there. I'm just going to go through the first row, then the second row. We've got the blown Camaro, one of my favorites, the 70s Camaro or early 80s Camaro. We've got the Chevy Stalker, and we've got the Ford, I believe this is a Ford Thunderburner, Ferrari 308, the 57 Chevy, Ferrari Testarossa, and that's rounding out the mix. And then for your secondary color, they could also be found with a completely different color body, different tampos, and there they are. All these cars came from basically the same collection that I bought a couple of years ago on eBay. I just got quite lucky and found basically all the cars I was missing, and ended up replacing all the few cars I did have because mine were pretty worn out, missing tires, cracked tires, broken wings, that sort of thing. So the Power Command cars were only released for 1989 and 1990. After that, they were no longer sold, and that's the way it is with a lot of Hot Wheels through the years. As we saw through the 1980s, things like the Real Riders kind of came and went. Crack-ups came and went. The Scorchers were very short-lived. There's been lots of different examples of cars that, or different kind of, I guess, ideas that Mattel had to keep the brand interesting, and they certainly did do that. So, we're going to look at the backs of these big, huge playsets now. I'm going to get these spun around for you. This is a huge box, as you can see. And it's got quite a few configurations for the racetrack itself on the bottom. So it's the Lightspeeders Challenge, and there's a little blurb on it, race side by side with your pal. But from what it looks like, you got to be pretty close to these cars with these rather quite lightweight and cheaply built flashlight devices. I have kind of picked through the box a little bit to look at the items in it. Of course, no way to test it without the original cars. But lots of cool track pieces, so you could build a variety of different tracks. And most interestingly, this set includes the single lane tracks, pieces that we've seen throughout the previous decade that Hot Wheels released, and well into the 90s as well, that clip together, as well as double lane track sets that kind of merge down 2 into 1 or 1 into 2, including the corners, which are double car wide, so the cars could actually pass each other, however likely that may be, without them bumping into each other, or more likely probably just crash and get bound up, is what I'm thinking. But once again, for a future video, we will try that out and see what's going on with it. The double barrel set was basically just kind of a gravity set. There's no motors or anything in it. You've got 2 lanes that clamp onto a piece of furniture or whatever you have, with the 2 loops and these 2 cars, which won't probably be getting too much testing as they can be quite hard to find in good shape. I only have a few of them. Just turn this box around now. 2 very happy looking young lads enjoying the awesome cars that we see right there. The Hot Wheels Hotbird with blue metallic paint, and the gray interior, gold Hot One wheels. Very fast, very smooth rolling cars. These ones had suspension, and as does this car, which has the black windows, as all these Camaros did, so there is no interior. But all metal, solid cars, very heavy. Hard to find this one with good tampos on it. The tampos seem to wear out the quickest on that car. And that's the whole set. It's basically only configurable as one play set. Here we have an advertisement for the G4 stunt set, which would be released in 1990, I believe. I do not have that set. It does have the 1989 exclusive blown Camaro. That's another Hot Wheel we're going to look at in the second or third part of this video series. That car, just since we're talking about it, was mainly released in the Hot Wheels 20 packs. It was the exclusive car. And while I'm just going to give you a little teaser here for the future videos. There was lots of variations of that car, as you can see, and we're going to talk about all the different rarities and values on some of these cars, as I do have some specific information for these, as well as that Fire Chief car. There's a Larry Woods collection car. It has the tan interior. That car was $200 for me to add to the collection just because of the tan interior. So some interesting cars, even in the 1980s, worth quite a bit of money. Ziploc promotional cars and stuff like that. These are all basically like special cars, not ones you'd find in your local store. They were the cars you got at gas stations and cereal boxes and that sort of thing. So I hope you enjoyed this first part. Got more videos coming. I'm going to finish this series off, and I've got lots of Greenlight stuff coming as well. A huge box of brand new Greenlight that we've got to review, so lots more videos coming down the pipe. Happy hunting.